Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to this week's Facebook Live. First of all, I'm very sorry for the time change this week. As we'll find out, it's quite perfect for this week's topic, but a lot of things have been changed at the last minute. I've had to do some travel unexpectedly on a different time zone at the moment. So that's why I'm calling in a little earlier than promised. And usually we do stick to the 8 o'clock GMT, so UK time in the evening, as I know that was the most popular time for everybody. I've got wet hair, I'm afraid, so it's a very imperfect execution today. But as you know, I'm a big fan of imperfection and just taking consistent action. So hopefully this is all in keeping. And as I said, perfect for the topic this week. So for those of you who are new to the group and who don't know me so well, my name's Anna Lundberg. I'm a success coach and business strategist. And as you may have seen in the group, we're taking all these one steps, if that's grammatically correct, outside of our comfort zone. And ultimately, for many of us, that means outside of our traditional definition of success, that sort of narrow conventional focus on work and career and often the corporate 9 to 5. And I'll give you a little bit of a sneak preview at the end of the video today about what's coming next week. I'm incredibly excited, but more on that later on. I want to focus on today. I can see a couple of you are live, so I'd love for you to say hello, tell me where you're calling in from. I'm actually calling in from Mauritius. It sounds more glamorous than it is, and it's very much raining here, and I'm not exactly here for holiday either, but nonetheless, that's where I am. So hello everyone, and by all means comment, whether you're watching this live or later on. Give me your questions, any kind of comments on what I'm saying, any ideas, any answers to what I'm asking, if you have any cool things to share. And also, as I said last week, I'd love to get your feedback and input on the kind of things that I can help you with this year, and especially at the beginning of this new year when we're really focused and setting those intentions to achieve our goals this year. So last week we talked about setting ourselves up for success in 2018, and while there's a lot we can do and should do and hopefully are going to do and have done to set ourselves up for success, there are still lots of things that can go wrong. And as I hinted at the beginning today, that's why I said all these sort of difficulties and challenges are quite perfect for this week's topic, because the reality is however much we plan and set ourselves up in the way that we think we should do, we do all the right things, things can still go very wrong. And I know a lot of you have found me perhaps via one article in particular that's very popular in terms of the 10 things I learned since I quit my job. And it's very positive and it's 100% true, and I completely stand by it. And I think it's very important to put that positive view forward, because there's so much fear, concerns, negativity around leaving that familiar comfort zone and the corporate 9 to 5 and so on. So I think it's so important to put that alternative perspective, and as I said, a very truthful perspective out there. But nonetheless, even though that is a very positive and real situation, and one, by the way, that's been shared by a lot of my clients now and many other people I've had the good fortune to connect with over the last few years, there are still things that we can do and things, as I said, that may go wrong. And while it may seem negative to focus too much on all these things that can go wrong, the reality is that if we're aware of them, we can, of course, do even more to make sure that, first of all, we reduce the likelihood of them happening in the first place, and secondly, if they do, we're prepared and we have some kind of contingency plan, and we're sort of aware of that worst case scenario and can work through that. So we'll have a few resources to share with you. This week's blog post is on this topic as well, and a couple of other articles that I've written over the past weeks and months that I think are really relevant, both in terms of getting negative and outlining all those things that can go wrong, but also then thinking of how we can set ourselves up for success. So still the same kind of theme, albeit with a different angle. So I wanted to dive straight in, and if you did read this week's blog post, you'll know that I'm going to group these kind of obstacles into 3 different areas. And again, I'd love for you to jump in if you're watching live, and again, if you're watching after the fact as well, if you think that any of these things sound familiar, if you have other issues that are cropping up, or if you have any questions or comments at all on what I'm saying. But the first area I want to talk about is mindset, the second one is planning, and the third one is implementation. And actually, there are things that can go wrong along the way, along each of these 3 stages, both when we haven't done certain things and perhaps when we have done things wrong. But first of all, mindset. And it's one of those weird things, because mindset, I hear so much about it and I talk so much about it now that I'm in the coaching world and personal development and so on. But it's something I wasn't so aware of, I think, in my corporate time. And certainly, you know, we had something about visualization. And of course, you hear of athletes who are visualizing their success and, you know, being in that kind of positive, focused mindset. But it does feel a bit, you know, woo-woo, as they say, or a bit not so academic and rational, maybe. But the truth is that everything starts with mindset. And most of the time, I think a lot of you guys know what it is you want to do, you know what it is you need to do, and something else is getting in the way. So usually it's something around mindset. And again, if you've been following me for a while, and if you read what I write and watch what I talk about, you'll know that the first thing for me is defining success. And I think one of the main things that can go wrong is that we're following still that wrong definition of success. Wrong meaning that it's not meaningful to us, that it's someone else's definition, or we haven't even defined success. So we're just kind of working hard, scrambling, hustling towards some unknown, vague destination that we're not even aware of. Or maybe, as I said, it's someone else's destination. So first of all, if you don't have a definition of success, or if it's someone else's definition, or it's just not very clearly defined, or your definition is not meaningful to you, you know, that's not going to lead to any kind of real results, because you won't be committed and motivated to work towards that definition, certainly when you don't know what that definition is. And a lot of the other things that we'll talk about can go wrong simply because you haven't set yourself up here from the beginning. So as ever, defining what success is for you, getting clear on what you're trying to achieve is paramount. And that's not to say that you need to do that today or in the next few minutes, and it doesn't mean that it's not going to evolve. But just be aware that if you are sort of taking lots of actions and running left, right and centre and doing stuff but not really seeing the results, then it might be worth taking a step back, thinking a bit more holistically about what it is you're trying to achieve. So within mindset, having that wrong or lack of definition of success is certainly one of them. And again, jump in if any of these sound familiar. Another thing is fear, and we talk so much about this, and again, I've written a lot about it. And the things I hear from you guys is fear of failure, fear of maybe looking stupid, making the wrong mistake, or making a mistake, any mistake, if there's such a thing as a right mistake, being judged by other people, looking stupid, all those things. And again, some of those are mindset, some of them are concrete concerns, and one of them being a fear around money as well. One of the articles I'm going to link to that you may have seen is one around the 3 myths that I talk about around money. And a lot of us have a lot of beliefs, mainly coming from our childhood, often from our parents, from society, from, you know, the environment in which we've grown up, to do with money. And again, this is something I hadn't really thought about at all up until a few years ago. But it's so true. If you start questioning, you know, your feelings and emotions and ideas around money, and for a lot of us, it's quite an uncomfortable area. Maybe our parents argued about it, or we just haven't really understood, you know, finance, investment, and so on. It's quite a stressful, tricky concept to get your head around. Even if I studied economics, I don't think I really understood it so well until, well, still probably don't really. But it's like one of those things, you know, it's just so intricate and complicated. We think, oh no, it's too hard, I can't understand it. Also, when we're in a corporate job, we don't even really need to think about money, because if we're lucky enough to have a stable, secure job, as we think it is at least, you know, we're getting that salary coming in every month. The company, the state takes your tax, you get your pension, etc., etc. You don't really question it. But when you start working for yourself, and certainly when you start leaving or considering leaving that comfortable salary, money definitely becomes a big concern. But as I said, those 3 myths around money, I'll link to that article. But a couple of them are really, you know, that we think money is really important. And yes, it is important, but it's important up to a point. And there's lots of studies now saying, you know, that beyond a certain level of money, our happiness doesn't actually increase. And certainly in my own experience, whenever my salary has increased, I've just adjusted my spending to match that salary. So beyond a certain point, you know, we're not actually going to get happier or more stable, secure, whatever it is. Also because there are other risks. I'm sure we'd all love to be millionaires, but, you know, once you're a millionaire, maybe you worry about, you know, thieves or, I don't know, crashes or corruption or whatever it is, your investments going sour and so on. So there's all sorts of things that you can worry about then as well. So it's not that once we have money, we will be happy and all our problems will be solved. So that's one of them. Another myth is that we can only, and the best way to get money is via a corporate, safe, secure job with that salary. And somebody mentioned a while ago to me, which I think is quite fascinating, that of course a company doesn't pay you what you're worth, because if they did, they wouldn't be making money. So by definition, you're making less than you're worth, which means that as a lot of us leave the jobs that we've been in, actually starting out as consultants or freelancers, we're going to be able to charge more than we were before even. And certainly setting up your own business now is one of the best ways in terms of raising your rates, setting your own rates. And potentially, of course, many businesses fail, but if you do it right and have some luck along the way as well, setting yourself up so that you can actually bring in more money than you did in your corporate job. And certainly, again, going back to the first point, that money is perhaps not so important as we think, and certainly there's a threshold. You can certainly replace some of that income and enough to be able to live by, should you so want to. That's just a few of the myths and concerns around money. If we haven't, I kind of don't want to sort of brush this aside. I don't want to say that money isn't a concern, because if we haven't considered these things, if we hadn't put aside savings, and I certainly had savings when I first quit my job without a plan, as I'll talk about in a minute, but if you haven't got savings, if you haven't got some kind of plan for your income streams and so on, of course it's going to be a big fear over your head, and of course that will stop you from actually getting your goals. So again, although I want to be very positive and realistic and pragmatic about what is possible, it is still very important to confront this fear if it's one that you have, and put in place, as I said, either start saving, cutting down, putting aside money, and starting perhaps a business along the side of your full-time job or another job, so that you make sure you still have that income coming in. And in particular, of course, that's important if you have obligations such as a mortgage or a family. I know that's incredibly important. You don't want to put the people you love at risk. Again, when I quit my job, I was single with not a care in the world, and I know the situation will be different for each of us. So it's really down to you to think about that money problem and make sure it's not a problem. So what else around mindset? Well, fear, as I said, fear of failure, fear of making mistakes, fear of looking stupid, and so on. And again, surprise, surprise, it comes down to that definition of success again. Because, of course, if your definition of success is the corporate job, the 2.4 children, the house, the mortgage, the car, whatever it is, if you leave that job behind, then yes, you're a failure. But if your definition of success is something different, then, who's to say that that's a failure? Your definition shifts, and the other question to ask yourself is failure according to who? So I know, yes, it is hard not to take on board how other people feel, and people will very much vocally tell you what they think of what you do, I'm sure. But you will also find as you take steps that you meet so many incredible people who are doing different things, living according to their own different definitions of success, and they'll be incredibly supportive. There will be some negative voices, and again, that's why it's important to be aware of this. But so many encouraging people. You can find your tribe, as we often say, online, offline, to help you there as well. So again, jump in if you have any other sort of fears or concerns and so on around mindset, but mindset is really the first place where things can go wrong. And if you go into this thinking, I can't do this, I'm not entrepreneurial, I'm not good enough, I can't possibly give this up, I need safety, security, I don't have the XYZ, I'll do it when I ABC, whatever it is, then most likely you're not going to succeed, because you need to be in this to say, yes, I can do this. If there's something I can't do, I'll find out how, I'll learn, I'll get the support I need, and I am going to do this, or at least I'm going to try. I know that Yoda said, one of my favorite quotes said, do or do not, there is no try. But I think trying is fine. And as they say as well, to throw in another quote into the mix, if you shoot for the stars, you might at least land in the treetops. So I like that too. So, by all means, dream big, but think also pragmatically and address those concerns, as I said. So number one thing that can go wrong is your mindset. Number two is planning. And again, I hinted at that article and the way in which I left my job. And the title that's often put forward when it gets republished in that article is the 10 things I learned since quitting my job without a solid backup plan. And the reality is that again, is completely true. I didn't exactly have a plan. I wanted to be a writer. I had ideas of setting up a business. I wanted to travel. And I did all those things. I am doing and have done those things. But I didn't really have a plan for those things. And because of that, it has taken me much longer to work out what I wanted. I've done things that I didn't want. I've been sucked back into things perhaps that, were too close to what I was doing before. I've gone off on lots of different detours and the long way around, and had a few hiccups along the way, which is absolutely fine. And, I'm all for embracing mistakes and learning these days. But if you want to have a smoother ride, again, make sure you're not having those, big risks and issues around money, taking longer than you need to. Maybe you're a bit older and you want to, get to your dream career or business much quicker, and you don't want to take years and years to explore this, then, planning is actually incredibly crucial. So things that can go wrong when you don't have a plan is, number one, not having a plan. And there are certain steps that you need to take. There's no sort of magic, I always say this, there's no magic 6-step formula to success or starting your business or escaping the 9-to-5 or whatever. All these kind of 6 steps to 6 figures leave me a little bit skeptical. But there are certainly certain stages that you move through, and there are also certain steps that you will need to take. And some of those may be clear to you and some may not, and you may need to do them in a certain order and so on. So not having that information, not being able to already sort of at least have an overview of, this is my goal. And again, it starts with the goal and your definition of success. I want to have this many clients by this time, or I want to quit my job by 3 years from now. I want to have saved this much money, whatever it is. Not having that plan, of course, means that you're just kind of working in the dark, and you may get to where you want to get to, but as I said, it's going to take a lot more time. You may make a lot of mistakes, and yes, it might be better to have a plan. And the plan is on 2 levels, really. First of all, it's the overall transition, and that's the kind of thing like, as I said, saving money, cutting down on expenses, maybe moving in with someone else if you can to save on rent, and whatever it is. A lot of those things are around money, but just planning the timings, the steps you want to take, and so on in the transition. But the other area, of course, is the business plan. So if you're going to be starting a business, we're all about lean, agile businesses today. If you've heard of the Lean Startup book, very popular book, and we talk about having a minimum viable product, very lightweight kind of strategy, business model, and then we try and fail and we learn and so on. And that's completely true. And that's great news, because it means we can start businesses with much less resources. We don't need, a 100-page document or business strategy, and that can work really well. But the truth is that you need to start from somewhere. And with that in mind, you want to have some kind of idea of the business you're going to be in. You want to have the, the idea of what your value proposition is, your, everything, your ideal client, your brand, your marketing and sales and so on. How are you going to be able to bring in money? And really, what is your business about? Is it, from the start, freelancing, consulting, or having your own business? Are you going to work with clients globally or locally? Are you going to do something very similar to what you're doing now? In which case, if you are in a full-time job, you may need to, check the, the conflict of interest clause and so on. Or are you going to do something completely new? In which case, you may need to plan, development of new skills, new resources that you might need, and so on. So planning, both in terms of the general transition and also for the business itself. And then the third bucket is implementation. And this may be the most visible thing that can go wrong for you in terms of, I just don't have the discipline, I don't have the time. You kind of know what you want to do, but you're just not getting there. And actually, again, going back to the first 2, often what looks like an issue of implementation is actually an issue of mindset, not having the right goals in place in the first place, and not having planned. Because if you don't have those clear goals and above all the clear priorities, how on earth can you plan your time around doing those priorities in the right way? And certainly if you're starting a job alongside a full-time if you're starting a business alongside a full-time job, if you're trying to look after children, learn a new skill, do a course, whatever it is, you're going to need to be very disciplined with your time. So all that starts with having the right goals, priorities in place, first of all. And again, I've given a couple of you this article already, but the ideal week is something that I like to use in terms of time blocking. When I first quit my job, I was very free and easy in terms of just, I don't want to set an alarm and I just want to, do whatever I want to do. And that was very nice and it worked quite well. But I eventually realized that having some kind of structure and framework to my day really helped me to make progress, and ultimately that kind of lack of freedom gives me then the bigger freedom that I want. So both, if you're in a full-time job and you're doing this alongside of that job, or if you're already free like I am, and you know, having that entire day, week, month that stretches out in front of you without any particular milestones or people telling you to come to a meeting or anything, then you know you're in control of your own time, and it's all the more important to be able to put that time to good use. So, you know, there's all sorts of resources online in terms of time management and so on. These ideas of eating the frog. I definitely find that if I do the biggest, the hardest thing first thing, or even the sort of most important thing first thing in the morning, ideally if you're a morning person, you know, you can get up in the morning and do that, possibly before work, or at least before you start all the admin-y, email-y things and so on, then that's a great way to make sure that you're making progress. Because ultimately, you know, if this is something that we really want to do, we have to make sure that we're giving it the time and energy that it deserves. And there are so many things that can get in the way: unexpected travel, illness, general tiredness, migraines in my case, you know, all these things that can go wrong, unfortunately. And it's so important then to, you know, to hold that vision in your mind, to show self-compassion, as I say, to look after yourself, you know, to not give yourself too much of a hard time if you don't quite manage, and then get back on the horse again the next day. I've just been exercising a few minutes before this call, had a quick shower, hence the wet hair. But, you know, I wanted to do a proper 45-minute session, and then I didn't quite have time. So I did a 15-minute HIIT session with the body coach. And you know, that's imperfect. But it's definitely better than going, oh, there's no point anymore, I'll do it tomorrow, which is the recipe for never doing it at all. And actually exercise and nutrition is a great example, because, you know, if you think of the discipline of actually implementing, let's say, a diet and exercise routine, it might be that you basically, we all know what we need to do. We know we need to eat healthily, whatever that means. It can be a little bit controversial maybe, but we know we need to eat less, you know, probably less sugar and white bread and so on, more vegetables, drink more water, etc., and do more exercise. We know that, and yet it's incredibly hard to implement that. So again, that comes down to, why is it we want to eat more healthily? Why do we want to exercise? Is it just because we feel we should? Is it because it's really important to us to look fantastic for our wedding day? Is it because, you know, our doctors told us actually this is vital? Something like that is really a great push towards doing something. But, you know, what is the bigger vision of what we're trying to achieve, and why is that important to us? And then also in terms of that implementation, once we have that vision, if we decide it is sufficiently important, how are we going to implement it? And planning what you're going to eat, buying the ingredients, planning your meals, planning in your diary when you're going to go to the gym or do exercise, is vital to that. And the next step, of course, is getting someone to help you. I always think it must be so easy to be healthy and fit if you're a celebrity with, you know, a nutritionist, a personal trainer, and all these things. And you know, some of us can and do use these resources maybe at a lower level than the big celebs you have live-in dietitians and chefs and so on. But having a personal trainer is one way to have that accountability to be able to implement our plans. And in the same way, in terms of, you know, career change and business, we can have accountability via a friend, a peer, via a mentor, coach, or even like a course or a program that we sign up to have those deadlines and the sort of support and accountability in place. So those are the three buckets I wanted to talk about: mindset, planning, implementation. I'd love to hear from you where in these three buckets sort of you feel that you're struggling or have been struggling, and any ideas you have for other people, what's worked for you, and also any questions you have in terms of how I or anyone else in the group can perhaps help you. And maybe we can set up an accountability system as well going forwards. But certainly that's why we're here in the group. Come in here, you know, share your vision, share your ideas, let me know, let us know where you're getting stuck. And there's a whole host of experience in the group beyond my own that I'm sure people will be more than happy to share. So that's it for this week's Facebook Live. I hope that's worked okay, technically speaking. We've had some storms here and poor signal, so I'm really hoping this has worked. And that will be going out as well this week. Next week, I will be back to the normal time, which is 8 o'clock in this Facebook group, GMT, which is British time, so 9 o'clock European time, and whatever else that means in all the other time zones. as I said at the beginning, really exciting news next week. Finally going to be talking about something that I've been hinting at for a while, which is the group program. I won't say anything more right now, but I know I've hinted at that to you guys for some time, and I'm so thrilled to say that it's finally coming. I'm going to be launching very, very soon, and much more detail on that next week. So I'll be chatting to you guys all, I'm sure, in the coming weeks about this. And as ever, if you have any questions, comment on the video, message me, message in the group, and I'll do my best to answer you as soon as possible. Just checking my notes to see if there was anything else that I wanted to say. The only other thing I would say, as ever, is that I'd love to invite you to a one-step consultation call. If we haven't already had that call, it's a great way for me to get to know you a little bit better, and now to talk to you specifically about the coaching and this group program that's coming up, in terms of how I might be able to help you if you're getting stuck in any or all of these areas that I've talked about today. And if you've decided that this is the year that you're actually going to take this one step outside the corporate 9 to 5 and set up your business or grow your business. So I'd love to have a chat with you. I'll link to that in the comments. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a wonderful weekend in the meantime. I hope you take imperfect but consistent action, and take this opportunity to dive into all those negative things that can go wrong, all with the ultimate objective to be able to anticipate those wrong things and hopefully put in place a contingency plan if they do happen. Lots of luck and every bit of success, whatever that means to you. Talk to you soon. Bye.